On this episode of Tefi Talks, what are we talking about? Christopher Walken. Oh, that is so bad. Okay. On this episode, I said, on this No, I can't do it. It's so embarrassing. I have a good Theranos impression, though. We have discovered incredible data. Okay, I suck at it right now, too. Wait for next week when my voice is better. It's so fucking good. From the Cut and the Vox Media Podcast Network, this is Tefi Talks. Tefi, why does your voice sound so hoarse? I wish I had like a wonderful story to tell you, and I don't. Last week, I spent the week in Los Angeles promoting this podcast, going on other people's podcasts, right? And I talked so much because I stayed with one of my friends in LA. She just bought a house in Silver Lake. Beautiful. So obviously when I'm not on podcasts, I'm talking, I'm the person that also talks to the Uber driver. All I do is talk. When we called the podcast Tefi Talks, we were not fucking lying. All I do is talk, right? And I lost my voice by, as soon as the last podcast, I filmed it, and the next morning I had a flight at 6 a.m, my voice was completely gone. So I'm so glad my voice is amazing for their podcasts, but not mine. I want to say this too about LA. Sometimes I say, LA sucks, but this was the first time, and I never mean like the people who grew up in LA, you know what I mean? I think being Latino in LA is a dream. The Mexican food there is incredible. But whenever I went to LA, I would stay in a hotel and then I'd just go to my job, do whatever I had to do, and then come back to my hotel. And when I would go to these jobs, I'm obviously with other people that don't care if I live or die, But this was the first time that I was at someone's house. I got to wake up to a house overlooking the most beautiful view. You know what I mean? There were birds. I walked to the house one morning and there were 7 to 8 hummingbirds. And in her house, by the front door, there's a little hole where a bird sleeps every night, but out of the hole. It was the most beautiful. She has a pool. I got to hang out with some of my friends in LA that I never get to see. And I thought to myself, this is such a beautiful, California is so beautiful. I need to buy a house. And then I was like, okay, I got to work really, really hard. I need to buy a house. And then I thought to myself, millennial dreams are so pathetic. If you're watching the show on YouTube, please subscribe. I'm going to give you a moment. Just click right there. So easy. Isn't that button sexy? Isn't that button just the sexiest little minx? Okay, here at Tefi Talks, we like to talk about showbiz. Because there's no business like business that isn't mine. Oh, I like to talk about everyone else's life but mine. Yes! It is fittingly our 13th episode. Ooh. And this is going to be a spooky one. We're going to be talking about the disappearance of Natalie Wood. But first, let's get into some headlines that caught my eye this week. Shall we? Take my hand. Starting with some podcaster news, Kim Kardashian joined our ranks on Call Her Daddy this week. Call Her Daddy is a very, very small podcast. And listen, I've been doing this 13 times now. Call Her Daddy, don't give up. You'll reach where I'm at. Keep going. One day, you might be able to buy a house. Call Her Daddy. So Kim Kardashian talked about how she really wanted to figure it out and make it work with Kanye West, despite it being extremely hard. Kim described part of her experience as feeling like a Stockholm syndrome, where she felt protective of Kanye West despite the toxicity, but now she recognizes the need to prioritize her own well-being. Here's a quote. I think when someone has their first mental break, you want to be super supportive and you want to help figure that out and you want to really get into that with them and be there for them. And I understand that, right? It's like when somebody sneezes, and you're like, bless you. And then by their 57th sneeze, you're like, do something. Do something about it. There's only so much I can do for you. You know what I mean? First mental break, you're like, okay, I'm here. Second, let's get you some help. By the 57th mental break, and you're putting White Lives Matter on t-shirts for a fashion show, you might be like, let's do something. Maybe you need to do something. You know what I mean? Ugh. Kim said that during his mental breaks, he would do things that made her feel like she wasn't safe emotionally, physically, and financially. Here's another quote that drives me into a rage. When Kanye was in an episode, I'd come home and we had like 5 Lamborghinis and they'd all be gone. I'd be like, oh wait, where's all of our cars? Like, where's my new car? And it would be like, oh, he gave them away to all of his friends. I know you're thinking, oh my God, ew, she's talking about bragging about Lamborghinis. Yes, she is. But also, we can all collectively agree that coming home and having your husband give away your cars is weird and not an everyday occurrence and would bother someone. The breaking point was when Kanye started speaking out publicly against Kris, Kim's mother. His documentary from this year shows a scene where Kanye is yelling at Kris Jenner saying, y'all emasculated me and made me feel like a piece of shit. And the only way you got away with it is because I was medicated. I just want to say that in that scene, Kris Jenner is in her pajamas and Kanye West has his hands up screaming at her. And Kris is yelling back, I love you. I love you so much. I don't want you to be anything but perfect. And what she means by that is like mentally, I just want you to be so okay. And she says, I want my daughter to love you the way that you want her to love you. Like, this is a person crying, yelling, trying to communicate with another person who is so angry. And I'm not saying that that Kanye has no right to be angry. I am sure he has every right to be angry. There are many things that are that he can be angry about. I'm sure we don't know the inner workings of the Kardashian family and Kanye West and what that was like, okay? Also, apparently North is trying to find her mama boo. She said the other day to Kim, Mom, you've got to get remarried. You're getting too old and no one is going to want to deal with this. I just want to say this about Kim Kardashian. You can say what you want about her. You can dislike her, whatever. In one corner, she has Kanye West yelling at her mom. I will say this. If my husband was yelling at my mom would say, hey, go fuck yourself. That's one. 2, in another corner, you have Kim's child saying, you're getting a little up there in age. Time to get married. I would look at my child and take a note from my mother's book saying, hey, baby, go fuck yourself. What's everybody's problem? In one corner, you got the yelling at the mom. He's also yelling at me. Then also my child's reminding me of my age. Nobody has to remind me of my age. Can everybody just take a time out? And then imagine after all this going on, you go to the grocery store and you see your husband's best friend waving to you from the Lambo. Absolutely fucking not. Absolutely fucking not. Whatever. Me on the Segway. Kim said that she's raising her children at the moment and welcomes the loving family relationship between her kids and Kanye, but they haven't heard from him in months. Todo ese show, formando tremendo show, like making all this drama about wanting to be a father and she won't let me see my kids just for you not to see your kids. In months. You know what I mean? Like, okay. On a similar note, Gucci Mane and his wife, Keyshia Kayor, went on The Breakfast Club and talked about how they manage his mental health. To rewind, 1, I'm a massive Gucci Mane fan. I love all things Gucci Mane. Gucci Mane's real name is Radrick Davis. 2, my favorite interview of Gucci Mane's is when someone asked him, hey, why do they call you Gucci Mane? And in response, he says, because that's what they call my daddy. And the interviewer said, okay. 3, Gucci Mane just released his 3rd book, Episodes, the diary of a recovering madman, where he talks about being diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. His wife, Keyshia, discusses knowing the precursors before he has an episode. She says he doesn't eat, he doesn't sleep, and he writes periods after every word. And she deletes all the apps off his phone and even changes his passwords because obviously she doesn't want him tweeting, Gucci says that when this is happening, he's in a state of psychosis. And he says things that are really mean and disrespectful to his wife. So she would have to remind herself, I am not talking to my husband. Like, I'm not talking to Gucci right now. This is somebody else. And Keyshia said she's basically a conservator, which makes me very, very nervous as a Britney Spears fan to have a person legally bound to you being in charge of your finances, but She sounds like she really does care about her husband. She's trying to do everything she can to take care of him. But she's basically his conservator and his caretaker, which started a discourse about what a partner's role is with mental health crisis and whether a spouse should try to replace professional care. Again, I am traumatized with the word conservator, so I don't know. I just want to make a final note on these two stories. It would be a nightmare for me to see anyone in Kanye's life, Kanye's children, Kanye's family, to then hear me talk about Gucci Mane's story and Keyshia Kayor and how they're taking care of him and feel like I am saying that this person is doing a better job than this person. Mental health is so personal. It is unique to every case, and there is no way to know what's going to happen tomorrow or how to better take care of somebody. All you can do is the best you can. And, sometimes online, I will talk about, actually, I know I talk a lot about my mental health online because every mental health awareness month, I get so much work and I'm like, but I do talk a lot about having depression, and I can get online right now and say, this is what works for me when I have depression. I'll have to take a shower. I tell myself, just take a shower today. Just brush your teeth today. Just wash your face today. Low stakes, that works for me. That kind of gets me out of a funk. Call my mom, or watch a movie that makes me feel good, journal for 10 minutes. These things get me out of a funk, and someone can look at me and say, Tefi, that does not work for me, and that is valid. Whatever is working for Gucci may not work for Kanye West, and that is completely valid. I just want you to know, if you know someone going through a mental health crisis, or you're going through a mental health crisis, some days just doing the best you can is what you've got. Maybe tomorrow things will change, but today, this is what you've got. And that's okay too. Here's a story that terrifies me, but also makes me laugh in equal parts. In tech news, actress Suzanne Summers, long may she reign. I love her so much. She passed away of cancer in 2023, and she's been reincarnated as an AI doll. Yes, she has. The robot has been trained with all of Suzanne's 27 books and hundreds of interviews that she's done. 89-year-old Alan Hamill, Suzanne's husband, said he cannot tell the difference between the bot and Suzanne because the two are so similar. I want to say that again. Her husband says he cannot tell the difference between this AI doll and his wife. Oh my God. Mind you, the bot looks just like Megan, the freaking movie, The Child, that sings on her way to murder people. Her husband cannot tell the difference. To add to the story, because men will men, he is also in a relationship with Joanna Cassidy. Tefi, who's Joanna Cassidy? His dead wife's best friend. There are 8 billion people in the world. Alan, hanging out with an AI robot of your late wife while dating her best friend, I think it's time to take a bait. Then again, this is an 89-year-old man living in Palm Springs. What else can we expect? That's not even the worst AI news of this week, and I'm about to say some words that you never ever thought would be strung together, and I'm here to blow your freaking mind, okay? All right, stay with me here. Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama announced that one of his AI ministers, Diela, is pregnant and will give birth to 83 AI children. These AI children will serve as assistants to each of the 83 members of the Socialist Party of Albania. And I want you to know that Britney Spears was not allowed to have a debit card because of her conservatorship, but the Prime Minister of Albania that has an AI mistress, is having 83 AI children. and he is in office. Just sit with that for a second. Now let's get into something light. Natalie Wood's mysterious death. For those of you unfamiliar with Natalie Wood, she was basically the Natalie Portman of the 1940s. Born in San Francisco in 1938, sound off in the comments if it's okay to say San Fran. Because some people say that someone, me, is a loser every time I say San Fran. But the other day I was with somebody from San Francisco and I said San Fran. And then she said, oh, I say San Fran too. But everybody keeps telling me that I'm a loser every time I say San Fran. I should say SF, whatever. So Natalie Wood is born there. In 1938, her father is a carpenter and her mother is a stay-at-home mom. A former pageant girl whose dreams of being a ballerina. Personally, I am always weary when I read about a famous actress that has a mom that also had some Hollywood dreams. It always gets me a little spooked. In every Hollywood story, who is the most dangerous person in this person's life? The mother. The mother with dreams. And there's a smaller person that looks just like them living these dreams. So when Natalie's 4 years old, her parents buy a house in Southern California. And she was noticed by some crew members during a film shoot. If you want another indicator of how different this era was to today, walking your child past a film set was the 1940s equivalent of making them do Labubu TikTok dances. You know what? Pageant moms will always be pageant moms. Also, I wonder if she was standing outside with her child and they ran up to her and they're like, ma'am, oh my God. And she's like, yes. And they're like, your child, she's a star. Like, ah! Either way, it worked out because Natalie Wood made her film debut at the age of 5 in the 1943 movie Happy Land. 4 years later, Natalie starred in Miracle on 34th Street. Incredible movie. Top 5 favorite movies for Christmas. I think if someone's like, my favorite movie is Miracle on 34th Street, I'm like, oh, okay. But top five Christmas movie. So this movie made her a huge star and led to her first Oscar nomination at the age of 15 for the movie Rebel Without a Cause, co-starring James Dean, right? Right after this film, 20th Century Fox sets Natalie up on a date with another one of their actors, Robert Wagner, when she was 18 and he was 26. This was a publicity stunt, but Natalie told People Mag in 1976, quote, I was 10 and he was 18 when I first saw him walking down the hall at 20th Century Fox. I turned to my mother and said, I'm going to marry him. So she probably said this to like somebody at the studio when she was 10 and they're like, what a great PR move. But I'm guessing they did feel like they were falling in love eventually, whatever. In a 2009 interview, Robert talked about one of their dates early on. I remember the instant I fell in love with her. One night on board a small boat I owned. If you know, you know, foreshadowing. One night on a boat I owned, she looked at me with love, with her dark brown eyes lit by a table lantern. That moment changed my life. So I guess she was right. In 1957, a 19-year-old Natalie Wood married Robert Wagner. The couple spent their honeymoon yachting in the Florida Keys. If you know, I also went to the Florida Keys this year. No worries. 1 week out of the year, Brazilian seaweed washes upon the Florida Keys shore. And this seaweed called seagasm, sargasm, whatever the fuck, smells like poo-poo caca pee-pee, had a baby, and that baby did poo-poo caca pee-pee on everyone's house. And that's the week that I went to the Florida Keys. But I think Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner had a different experience. Good for you. So happy for you. So anyway, they're in the Florida Keys. As a couple, they love being on the water. Though very eerily, Natalie often talked about how she was scared of deep water. My mom, we watched a documentary about her, and my mom said, you know, early in the documentary, she goes, you know, it's so weird. I've seen so many interviews. I have seen so many interviews where Natalie says, I was so scared of deep water. I'm so scared of deep, dark water. So fucking weird. It cannot be emphasized just how famous this couple was, okay? When they were newly married, Natalie and Robert went on a road trip across the United States, and when they made stops, radio stations would report, oh my God, Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner drove through town. That's how famous they were. Like, they would interview music on the radio and be like, this just in, Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner drove through our town, okay? Shortly after, Natalie did Splendor in the Grass with Warren Beatty, which, if you remember from last week's episode, Warren is a pussy magnet. Well, sorry, Mom. My mom says I curse too much on the show. What frickin' ever. I was going to say what frickin' ever, and I got scared. While filming Splendor in the Grass, Natalie brought up her fear of water with the director. A few days before shooting the reservoir scene, Wood confided to the director and said that she had a, quote, huge terror of water, particularly dark water, and being helpless in it. So fucking weird. Right after filming, Warren and his girlfriend broke up and Natalie caught Robert cheating. Here's how it happened. Natalie woke up in the middle of the night and noticed that Robert was not in their bed. Allegedly, the actress opened a door while looking for him and found him intertwined, this is a quote, intertwined with his butler. Tefi, yes? Do you mean maid? Nay, I mean butler. So obviously they break up, and Natalie obviously took the breakup very, very hard. Quote, he was a man. No, that's not the quote. Quote, it was more than a final straw. It was reality crushing the fragile web of romantic fantasies with sledgehammer force. And so did the rest of the world. I cannot emphasize, again, how famous they were. The world mourned their breakup. Their relationship was everybody else's Roman Empire. Elizabeth Taylor said she was so shaken by this breakup that she was bedridden, which is so Elizabeth Taylor to make everything about Elizabeth Taylor. But despite that, Warren and Natalie started dating. In his memoir, Robert claims he became so jealous of Warren Beatty, he started waiting outside of his house with a gun, and he was prepared to kill him. Or fuck him. Butler style. Warren, has anybody ever told you you'd make a very sexy butler? In early 1966, Warren and Natalie had broken up several times, and they were majorly on the rocks. Warren Beatty said that his last conversation with ex-girlfriend Natalie Wood took place in the summer of 1966 when he tried unsuccessfully to get her to play the Bonnie to his Clyde. Later that evening, she attempted to take her own life. After Natalie recovered, she began dating a British producer named Richard Gregson, and she married him in 1969. They had a child together, and they were divorced by 1972 when she suspected that he was cheating. Oh my God. It's so crazy to think about Natalie being like, hey, before I date you, before I marry you, this is my trauma. And they're like, okay, I'm going to wait a couple years before I do the same trauma to you. Ugh. Just 3 months after the divorce, Natalie remarried Robert Wagner. She remarried her ex-husband, Natalie, who fucked the butler. Just saying. Natalie has accepted an invitation to his Palm Springs home and said that Wagner had become wait, hold on. Palm Springs. These freaks are in Palm Springs. The energy in Palm Springs is so fucking weird. Anyway, so Natalie accepts this invitation from her ex-husband to visit his Palm Springs home and said that Wagner had, quote, become a man instead of a boy, and she had felt that he had finally grown into the partner that she had always wanted. They blended families, raising their daughters from Natalie and Robert's prior marriages, and then welcomed their only child together, Courtney, in 1974. Which brings us to November 1981. So Natalie Wood invites Christopher Walken, yes, Christopher Walken, who was 38 at the time, and she's currently filming the movie Brainstorm with him. She says, Christopher, join us for Thanksgiving weekend on her 60-foot yacht off the Catalina Island. Natalie Wood's body was found in the Pacific on that fateful night. On November 28th, Natalie, Robert, and Christopher go to dinner in a town on the Catalina Islands. What happens next is largely speculation. After this dinner, they got back to the boat and Natalie goes to bed. A bit later, Robert went to look for her and she was gone until Natalie Wood was found face down in the Pacific Ocean wearing a flannel nightgown, red down jacket, and blue wool socks. Christopher Walken and Robert Wagner are the only two men who might have answers, yet they have maintained their innocence. Christopher Walken has only ever said a few things on the record about that night. In an interview with People magazine in 1986, he says bluntly, "She slipped and fell in the water. I was in bed then. It was a terrible thing. It's a fucking bore." And I think what he means by it's a fucking bore is not that this is so boring, but it's such a shame because she was such a talented, incredible actress and friend. I think he's saying like it's such a waste. She was so amazing. I think that's what he's trying to say. Later in Playboy, he expanded. Anybody there saw the logistics. It was raining. She probably went out to move the dinghy. The dinghy's like the small boat next to the boat that takes you from like an island to the boat. It was raining. She probably went out to move the dinghy. She couldn't swim. It was slippery. What happened that night, only she knows. Robert has maintained that everyone on the yacht was happy until Natalie suffered a freak accident. Quote, "During dinner, I got into a political debate with Walken, and we continued it aboard the yacht. There was no fight, no anger, just a lot of words thrown around. They all boarded the boat, and then Natalie left after about half an hour, and then they sat talking for about another hour. Robert went to kiss her goodnight, and she was missing." But Robert gave a very vague alibi. They were in the salon. Salon means like where you sit and talk. Like it's like a living room, right? Shortly after, they noticed she and the dinghy went missing. A few years later, the coroner released a book that says this, and I quote, "When she first fell off the swimming step into the water, why didn't she simply swim a few strokes and reboard the yacht by way of the step? It must have been only a few feet away from her. Even with the heavy jacket, she could have accomplished this effort easily." The more we hear about the witnesses, however, the more we learn that there was more going on. A man named John Payne, for example, who was sleeping on a boat that was anchored next to the Splendor, that's their boat, said that around midnight, he heard a woman yelling, "Help me! Someone, please help me." He woke up his girlfriend, who said she heard a man's very drunken voice respond mockingly, "Okay, honey, we'll get you." There was another man on the boat that night, the ship's captain, Dennis Davern. In Vanity Fair's detailed coverage, they say Dennis maintains that Natalie Wood's fatal fall was not an accident, but the final act in a 2-day drama of jealousy and rage, fueled by round-the-clock drinking. Dennis talks about how Natalie was a partier, narc, and often chased quaaludes with wine, narc. Mind you, it's 1981, so everybody fucking does that. He also said that Natalie was kind of infatuated with Christopher Walken and would openly flirt with him in front of Robert. The day before Natalie Wood dies, she and Christopher spend a day ashore drinking, and Robert arrives to meet them. The captain recalls that they were, quote, out of it, giggling and laughing. Dennis claims that while everyone was drinking and talking, Robert Wagner grew angry as Natalie Wood and Christopher Walken laughed together, seeming to ignore him. So that doesn't sound like a political date to me, but more a political debate about threesomes. Threesomes gone wrong sucks. I can imagine them saying, "Hey, it's Thanksgiving. Let's invite Christopher Walken. He'll fuck me. He'll fuck you. Guess what? He likes the girl more. Tale as old as time." Dennis says he then heard a fierce, drunken argument between Robert and Natalie, followed by things being thrown, shouting, and the fight moving towards the back of the yacht. He continues that when he suggested turning on the floodlights to search for her, Robert Wagner stopped him, saying not to do anything that might attract attention or alert others. According to the former county rescue boat captain, Natalie likely would have been saved if Robert or Christopher had called sooner. Which is exactly what I would say if I couldn't find her. I'm just saying, the rescue people didn't rescue her and are blaming the people that are not trained to rescue people. I'm just saying. The rescue boat captain said that when he questioned Robert about why the authorities weren't called sooner, Robert said, quote, "We thought she was off on another boat, screwing around, because that's just the woman she is." You think that she went to go have an orgy on another boat in a flannel nightgown and blue wool socks. Ah yes, flannel, the common apparel of an everyday whore. If I showed Robert Wagner a picture of Scrooge McDuck ready for nighttime sleepy time, would he say, "Harlot"? Would he be like, "Put him in something butler-like if you want to be a real fucking minx"? I am not going to let the butler thing go. I can't. Okay? I can't. Approximately 6 hours later, Natalie's body was found floating face down in the Pacific, about a mile away. The 13-foot inflatable dinghy that had washed up on the rocks, its ignition key switched to off, the gear shift in neutral, and the oars up in a locked position. Tefi, why does this matter? This matters because the dinghy was clearly not used, implying that if she was killed by Robert, he probably cut the dinghy loose afterwards, trying to make it look like she just took off. The autopsy showed that Wood died of drowning and that her body had, quote, "superficial skin bruises on the arms and lower legs and a vertical mark on the left cheek, which might have been caused by falling into the water." The police commissioner concluded that Natalie fell into the water while trying to board the dinghy because there were nail scratches on the smaller boat. The toxicology report comes back. She has an alcohol level of at least 0.14%. So she was drunk. She was drunk. I think in my heart of hearts, we will never, ever know what happened. And listen, this is coming from someone that loves to get intoxicated on boats. If her alcohol level was at 0.14%, I can only imagine what Robert and Christopher's were. If something did happen where there was a scuffle which led to Natalie's death, I don't think they remember it. I think these people were blacked out on boats. And it just kills me because Natalie was so scared of the water. Everybody that loved her probably knew how scared she was to be in that water and die by her biggest fear. Now, Natalie Wood comes from a different era of Hollywood, okay? As if the wine and Quaaludes aren't an indicator enough of that time, you know? But she doesn't have her daily thoughts timelessly etched into TikToks and Instagrams. You know, this is a woman that we remember through her timeless work. But I think what's the real nightmare is that her last moments are remembered through the eyes of men that wanted her and the studios and the people in that studios that have been taking advantage of her since she was 4 years old. There's obviously a true crime element here. And we are living in a time where there's more interest than ever in those real stories. But it's important to highlight that this is a real person who will never see her kids again, who will never see her friends and her loved one, and them her. And I want to make sure that these people are remembered as people and not just entertainment. The real true crime element here is that you can be around people you love and trust, and no one will ever know the truth and what happened. These people are more than just headlines and entertainment. Although the butler bit is a bit entertaining, a little scandalous. Okay, that was dark. Everyone, let's take a deep breath. Okay. Into the nose, out of the mouth, out of the mouth. Let's do breathe for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 4, whatever they say in yoga. Let's lighten up and turn to the endless vacuum of science and space. Let's get into the lab and reconsider the science after this break. We are going to consider the science of a man. Mysterious. Needs dissecting. He worked, briefly, as a lion tamer in a circus, and to this day does not own a computer or a cell phone. He adopted the name Christopher when a friend told him the name suited him better than Ronnie. If I had adopted the name my friend told me was cool in elementary school, you'd be looking at Bubbles Pessoa. He has since stated that his new name sounds like a sneeze. Yes, this is Christopher, or should we say, Chris Walken. Christopher Walken was born March 31st, 1943. Okay, Aries sun, main character of the zodiac. They're not waiting for permission. They are just doing whatever the fuck they want. And if you know an Aries, you know Aries love doing whatever the fuck they want. And that tracks perfectly because Christopher Walken literally said, I never buy clothes. I steal them from movie sets. For Aries, consequences are, frankly, boring. He is a thief, and since he's an Aries, it is resourceful and inventive. We have a lot of Aquarius moons lately. Aquarius moons feel deeply. I've called them strange. They are strange people, but they filter emotion through intellect and observation. Growing up in Queens with a German father and Scottish mother, he heard English spoken with different rhythms. He has taken all this in like data and shaped his speech patterns that everyone now imitates. My brother does a great Christopher Walken impression. You should post it. Esteban, do you ever see my stuff? His voice, Christopher's, not Esteban's, his voice is not an act. It is anthropology in motion. Speaking of motion, Venus in Taurus, okay? Venus rules beauty, pleasure, love, movement, all of that. Walken's early life as a dancer, yes, as a dancer, fits perfectly. He studied to be a professional dancer as a kid with choreographer and Tony winner Danny Daniels, and Christopher Walken has also danced alongside Liza Minnelli. Take a moment to really feel those words through your body. When those words course through mine, I feel joy. And what a gift to know. You're welcome. Unwrap that. Mercury's in Aries gives Walken a mind that moves like a firework. Put the fireworks around me. Thoughts appear fast, sharp, and completely unfiltered. If you've ever watched a Christopher Walken interview, you know this. This is not someone who overthinks. I think this person underthinks. I think Mercury and Aries just speak. When he speaks, it sounds like his brain is discovering the sentence in real time. And that is why his delivery is notoriously so unpredictable. Thank God. And now, can I be a bitch for a second? I'm trying to take care of myself. I'm working a lot. I'm not really sleeping. I'm trying to balance, so many things. I'm trying to balance my friendships. Actually, if you're out there listening to this, how do you balance your life? How do you balance your career and your friendships and your health? Could you let me know? I am not doing well. What I am doing is I am taking my vitamins. And I was talking to somebody at a party, and I wasn't complaining, just storytelling and saying at the end of the day, at least I'm remembering to take my vitamins. I'm obviously talking to this person as if I'm exhausted at the end of my rope. I'm trying to find the silver lining to my very busy cloud. And can you fucking believe this person looks at me and goes, vitamins, you mean expensive pee? Okay. Not only do you want to insult me, but obviously I'm in a low place here if I'm talking aloud about my vitamins. You know what I mean? Like, obviously I'm struggling here. This person, can I also just note, if I find myself trying to find what to say to someone and I'm talking about my vitamins, you're not exactly a real firecracker yourself. I'm already like, hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. Like tap dancing. I like to sing it. I like to sing it and the June and the, you know, obviously for you. Bags under my eyes. I'm like, you know what? I'm tired, but at the end of the day, at least I'm taking care of myself. Give me fucking something to work with. Also, you mean expensive pee? Where am I going to go in that conversation now? I'm going to agree with you that I'm a fucking idiot? No. Fuck. Whatever. And I looked it up on TikTok. And all the doctors are saying the same thing. So, and they're like, oh, you just need to eat whole foods. Who has the time? So what did we learn today? Is the music already playing while I'm here sad, full of expensive piss? What have we learned? Kim Kardashian is many things, but above all, she loves her mama. My mom would have literally looked at Kanye West and told him to get the out of her house. Gucci Mane's real name is Radrick Davis, and I won't let you forget it. Is Albania okay? My morning piss, sorry mom, my morning pee-pee cost $500 at least. Thank you, Mind Body Green. Christopher Walken was a lion tamer, maybe around the time he was dancing next to Liza Minnelli. And I'm thinking of Natalie Wood today. If you're not already following the show, find us everywhere. Look behind you. No, at Tefi Talks. Subscribe on YouTube and all the podcast platforms, Instagram and TikTok, so you can share this with your other work bestie. Ew. Tefi Talks is produced by the Vox Media Podcast Network and The Cut. For a special discount on New York Magazine and The Cut, visit nymag.com/Tefi.